2 minutes.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to all the candidates and those attending in person and those online to the Iron Range Area Candidate Forum. My name is Jim Ramses, the editor of the Mesabi Tribune. We cover a large area from Nashua, Keewatin to Hoy Lakes, and thought it would be a good idea to get the candidates together to share their views as the general election quickly approaches. The election, no doubt, will prove to be important for all of northeastern Minnesota. I hope you enjoyed tonight's event. Now here's Irrb of RAMS.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Mesabi Tribune, Grand Rapids News Herald, and the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools. My name is Ida, and I serve as the director of the Range Association of Municipalities and Schools. We call it RAMS for short. Our organization is made up of over 60 public sector units of local government in the Taconite assistance area, the Iron Range. Our board consists of 22 elected officials from towns, cities, and school boards across the region, in addition to 2 superintendents. RAMS has been around for well over 80 years. The mission of our organization is to promote the general welfare and economic development of the cities, towns, and school districts on the Iron Range. You all know this. The Range is truly a unique place, known for our abundant natural resources, including timber, taconite, and other precious minerals. The Iron Range has a long history of strong political representation in the Minnesota legislature. With the retirement of long-serving public servants, Senator Tom Bach, Representative Dale Lewick, Senator Carrie Rude, and the late Senator David Tomasoni, there are going to be new faces representing our region at the Capitol. We want to ensure that our region has strong voices representing us. This is the reason that we're hosting tonight's forum, making sure that our citizens have the chance to hear directly from the candidates about their goals and visions for the future of the people and the communities of the Iron Range. We thought it was fitting to do this with the Mesabi Tribune and the Grand Rapids News Herald because newspapers bring a voice and bring information to our citizens so that they can make informed decisions. I want to thank the Hibbing Public Schools, the school board, Superintendent Aldrich, and the community for hosting us tonight in this historic and beautiful auditorium. And now to introduce our moderator for the night, Lois Olson. Lois has been described as Minnesota's barometer in measuring the mood and mindset of the state's residents. He's been analyzing the politics of the state for nearly 30 years, including 23 as a political analyst for WCCO Radio. He's the founder of Fluence Media, his flagship morning take daily tip sheet, which was founded in 2010, and radio segment are a must-read and listen for business and political leaders in the Midwest. Fluence also publishes and produces newsletters on business, agriculture, and law. His analysis and clients have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Politico, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, and numerous other outlets across the nation. And now let's give a rousing Range welcome to our moderator for the evening, Lois Olson.
Thanks, Ida. It's great to be here. They asked me to do this, and then they said it was going to be in this auditorium. And I will tell you, I will literally hit Worthington to Moorhead to the Range at least once or twice through this whole cycle, and this one's been circled on my calendar, so thanks. We have 4 candidates for the Minnesota Senate. They also have a deadline tonight. We have another panel after this, so we'll move it along. We don't have a timekeeper, but if I say time or I give the signal, you know, I know you're politicians, but we'll try to keep this thing moving. And we're going to start out with kind of an opening statement. We'll just start here with Grant. We'll go down the row. First of all, who are you and why are you running in a minute or two?
Great. Well, thank you so much, boys, and RAMS and the Saba Tribune and everyone else that sponsored this debate. And thank you all for coming. I'm Grant Hochschild, and I'm thrilled to be running for the Minnesota State Senate in District 3. I'm running because around here we go out of our way to have each other's back. And it's my theory that we do that not to make ourselves feel good inside. We do it because we know that life is that much easier. You know, my life is easier knowing that North Shore miners have extended unemployment with the idled mine. My life is easier knowing the family down the street also gets paid family leave like I did when my daughter Isla was born. My life is easier knowing that our Northland schools are supported from the Iron Range, International Falls, up the North Shore, but also where I'm from in Hermantown in the southern part of the district. You know, when this seat opened up and my opponent got in the race, I got a lot of calls from stakeholders, independent folks, and labor expressing concerns about the clout that we're losing in the region like Ida talked about. And, you know, I think we need an independent voice that's going to stand up for the Northland and fight for the things that are important. That includes ensuring that we continue to get our fair share of the Taconite tax for our schools, making sure that we keep that money here in the Northland, and that we're fighting for all of our communities, not just one particular area. So I look forward to this rigorous debate, and you know, I'm really focused on bringing my experience to the table. I've worked in the U.S. Senate, I've worked in the Department of Agriculture, I've always fought for rural communities because we provide the steel, the timber, the hardworking people, the manufacturing, the energy, and all the things that are critically important to our communities, and we should be proud of that. And we need a state senator that brings that experience. So I have both this federal experience, state experience, but I'm also a local city councilor in Hermantown, where I fought for paved trails at no cost to our residents. I fought for $4 million in the bonding bill with Senator Bach that otherwise wouldn't have been there. So thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Andrea Zupanusic.
Yep, you're wrong.
Well, as a voice, you know.
So hi, I'm Andrea Zupanusic. I have been mayor of Babbitt for 8 years now, and you know what? I have raised my family here. My husband is on the fourth generation owner of his family business, which has been here for over 105 years. I've raised my children here, and I'm a new grandmother. Plus, I opened up my own business. So, being a hockey mom, my youngest is a boy, and not that that matters, but we played hockey throughout the district. And over the years, I've been able to pretty much touch bases with every single person, not every single person, but in every town in the area. And the concerns are the same. And as I've been obviously door knocking and going into this new journey in my own life, it's really exciting, and it just confirms to me that I'm doing the right thing. I see the Iron Range, as well as District 3 as a whole, as just ready to boom again. We have lost our population has gone down, our schools have gone down as far as kids attending, and I want us to see where we were again. We have so much potential here, and we can be the leader in so many things, and that's what I want to bring back to the state of Minnesota, as well as our district. I want to see us grow. I want us to show everyone how we can do it right like we have been for 150 years in mining with clean water. I have met with both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. I've testified in Washington, St. Paul, as well as in Wisconsin when they were trying to get rid of the moratorium on mining. We have so many critical minerals in here that we can be the leaders, and that's what I want us to be. I want us to be proud, I want us to be loud, and I want us to stand forward and showing how we can do it, and we can do it the right way like we have been doing. We have some of the cleanest water in the state of Minnesota. Now, I'm actually a product of a mining layoff, and people just think that it's the miners that are laid off. I started my own business. My job was eliminated due to the mining layoff back in 2003, it would have been 2. I based everything on when I was pregnant, so that was with the boy. And I started a brand new career. So pretty scary. Went to school for one thing, Now all of a sudden I'm starting a whole new career at the age of whatever age I was at that time. And that's not always easy, but you know what, that just shows the perseverance we have up here. And started with one office. In the crash of the real estate cycle, on top of that, one office, one agent, 2 part-time agents. I am now at 4 offices, opening my 5th, and I have 18 agents. And so, you know what? Things happen for a reason, and we are cycling, and the range can go forward again and be the leaders that we're meant to be. So vote for me, Andrea Zapancic.
Ben Denucci.
Hello everyone, my name is Ben Denucci. I'm a 5th generation Iron Ranger. My family's lived in Nashwauk for 115 years. My grandfather's worked at National Steel, as did my dad before he became a teacher. I am the son of retired educators. I am a volunteer firefighter, a former mayor, a current county commissioner, and a small business owner. I own 2 mom and pop union shop grocery stores, and those stores were going to close. I know how important these types of businesses are to our communities. So I put a team together, kept the doors open, kept the lights on, and kept 30 people working good paying union jobs. I don't just talk about keeping communities thriving, I've taken action to do it. I've done my part as a local business owner. I know the challenges our businesses face, and I know the resources they require. For the last 8 years, I've gained valuable experience working in local government as a mayor and as a county commissioner. I fought for good paying local jobs like those in the mining industry. I've worked to pass a referendum that has replaced the oldest school in the state of Minnesota. And for the 4th year in a row, I got a 0% levy increase passed in Itasca County. Running for the state senate is a natural extension of work I've already been doing. And I know times are tough. I talk to people every day who struggle to put food on the table, put gas in their cars. It doesn't help when the corporations our workers are helping to make rich won't come to the table and negotiate with them. I'm going to fight for land swap deals to keep our minds open, eliminate the social security tax to help our seniors, and raise the Taconite homestead credit, something that has not been done since 1977, to put $300 back in the pocket of property owners. We're losing a lot of institutional knowledge with the retirement of Senator Bach and the passing of David Tomasoni. We can't take a chance on risky extreme candidates. Now more than ever, we need an experienced leader that can be a strong independent voice for us in St. Paul. I have the experience to hit the ground running on day 1 as your next state senator.
Rob Ponte.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to thank RAMS. I'd like to thank the Mesabi Tribune, the Grand Rapids Herald for putting this on. I'd like to thank the Hibbing School District for allowing us to use this auditorium. I had to look to see what your name was because I forgot.
Okay.
I apologize. And thank you to Blois for coming to what we believe and what we know is the best place in Minnesota to raise a family. I am Rob Farnsworth, and I am asking for your support. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up right here on the Iron Range over in Chisholm. After high school, I earned my bachelor's degree with a double major in history and social studies from the University of St. Thomas. Later on, I earned my master's degree from Mankato in special education. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, starting with the suburban school of Mounds View. It only took me a year of teaching there before I realized that is not where I wanted to be. So I moved home, began working for the Minnesota Department of Corrections up at Thistledew Camp, which is now called MCF Togo. That's a correctional facility. Back then it was for juvenile offenders. And then for the last 13 years, I have been a special ed teacher here with the Hibbing School District. So I don't know if that gives me home field advantage in something like this, but it's good to have everybody here. So when my wife and I got married, we were actually living down, well, she had moved to Red Wing, where I was living at the time. I was teaching at the correctional facility down there. I transferred from Thistledew down to Red Wing. And when we decided it was time to start a family, we knew that this is where we were going to raise our family. So I transferred back up to Thistledew. She was working as a nurse at the Mayo. She got a nursing job back up here. We packed up, moved home, and that was 15 years ago, 4 kids, and 1 red lab later. And so we're raising our children here, and I know that every politician that has children and all that says, well, yeah, I'm running because my children are my motivation. But we could have lived anywhere. And we said that this is the place that we grew up. This is the place that we want to raise our children. And we want it to be the best place for them to grow up. And unfortunately, I grew up on the range, and for the last 40, 45 years, we've kind of seen steady decline. I remember when Butler Taconite closed, I was 7 or 8 years old, and I remember driving by, and my parents would whisper and talk about, boy, we hope that doesn't happen to us, because my dad was a 33-year union miner at Menorca. And of course, I remember when LTV closed and the impact that that has. And I think we need to realize that mining is the absolute backbone of our communities. Mining has built so much, and we need a senator that's going to support mining, that's going to appreciate what that means, that's going to fight, quite frankly, the Metro DFL that's trying to end mining in all of Minnesota. They might claim that they're only going after non-ferrous mining, but that's not true. Look at what they're doing to Mintac. And so I'm running to fight for mining, to make this the best place to raise a family, and I look forward to discussing some of the issues here that we're able to get to. Thank you.
We're going to keep moving, because time is of the essence, and we want to cover as many topics. We'll start with Rob with this next question. We'll come back this way. Many of you said it. It is not a secret that, indeed, the range is losing a lot of clout in the legislature. How do you, if elected, bring more clout to the range when so much seniority has been lost? Rob?
Well, the first thing that I'll do, and it might sound kind of simple, but is I'll get elected as a Republican. And what I mean by that is the DFL has turned on mining. And if we send a Democrat senator from either 3 or 7, that helps to get a Democrat majority in St. Paul. And I just want to tell you the number 0. The number 0 is the number of pro-mining bills that the House has brought forward in the last 4 years that the DFL has controlled the House. My friend Spencer Igo is back there. He has proposed multiple pro-mining bills that were voted against by the DFL. And so just by being there, having the majority, being able to support mining. I'll also use my connections with other legislators that I know, reach out to union members. I've been a union member for I think almost 25 years now, starting when I was pushing carts at Super One for the Commercial Food Workers Union. And so, working with union people to try and create those good jobs and to work with people in St. Paul to bring that clout back and to bring people up here to realize, hey, mining is a good thing, we can do it cleanly.
Ben, how would you bring clout to the DFL on mining?
No, first and foremost, I'm running to represent this region. I'm running to represent the people that live here. And certainly, I'll work with the members of the party that endorse me, but I'll also reach across the aisle and work with Republicans that I build relationships with. The DFL is a big tent. We don't agree on everything. I have supported mining since I've been a mayor, and certainly as in my role as a county commissioner. And there hasn't been any anti-mining legislation that has moved forward. So for me, it's about getting things done. And in order to get things done, you need to be able to compromise. You need to be able to give a little and take a little. And I'm negotiating every day as a business owner. You've got to negotiate to get a deal done to keep business moving forward. In my role as a county commissioner, I've had to work with everybody. It's a nonpartisan seat. So I've had to have the ability to build a coalition to get things done. I'm already doing that type of work. I think I'm able to have a baseline understanding with members of the DFL, but I'm also able to reach agreement with Republican legislators that we share common views on. So by getting the work done and building relationships, I think I'll be able to build that clout back.
Andre?
So I told you I'm a realtor, right? So I'm used to negotiating with buyers and sellers. I have closed over 1,000 deals in the time I've been a realtor. So that means I have worked with 2,000 people to get something done. So it's probably a little bit more than that. I am willing, able, and completely confident
in being able to negotiate and just bring common sense back and get things done for our area. We need to be able to reach across the aisle, as was mentioned, but we also need to realize that there's a give and take on both sides, just like there is with buyers and sellers. I'm sure you've all bought some kind of property at some time in your life and have known that there is something you have to negotiate. So that experience, while it's not conventional, but you know what? I know what it takes to get it done, and I have, as I mentioned, testified and stood behind our union members in St. Paul as well as in Washington, and then also in Wisconsin, in the neighboring state. So I am confident that I can do that and be successful.
Grant?
Yeah, my biggest thing in this race has been being an independent voice. And I worked for U.S. Senator Heidi Heitkamp, the number 50 most moderate U.S. Senator in the U.S. Senate. I was her political director. I've been at those negotiating tables between Republicans and Democrats. The big thing that I bring to the table is that I have always fought for labor. I have always fought for the trades and our union members. And we need to make sure that Minnesota is protected from what happened in Wisconsin under Republican leadership. We know that they'll introduce bills to right to work. We know that they'll tear down our union rights and the power that we have here in the Northland. And we know, my opponent is talking about her business experience. We know that Zups and Andrea's business have laid off union workers and gone to court to make sure that they don't get paid the wages that they deserve. This is the kind of senator that Andrea would be. We know that the state Senate could be ground zero for protecting women's reproductive rights and keeping the government out of the doctor's office. And we know that Ben and I are pro-mining. We know that that is good for the DFL to have pro-mining legislators in the state Senate who are going to fight for mining and also be the pro-labor, pro-trade, and pro-union people that we need representing the Northland. We can't let the Minnesota GOP and the corporate business interests of that party gain control of the House and the governorship, because we will quickly race to the bottom like Wisconsin has. So let's make sure that we're electing strong leadership on all the issues, and that's what I'll bring to the table.
The next topic is schools and local government aid. The taconite tax currently 100% stays on the range. How do you ensure that will be the case? And what do you do to ensure that the tax revenue or state aid remains strong for the Iron Range? Andrea, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So the state aid is very huge, and that's what we need to focus on. That we're working on our schools, our children. We want to make sure everything keeps going. So the school trust funds also go for the entire state of Minnesota. And that's something that needs to also be focused on and also brought to light, because a lot of people think that, while we're up here, we're just a bunch of people that get state aid and we don't do anything. We're working very hard. The state leases bring money to the education of the entire state of Minnesota, not just our area. So those are things that need to be brought out and have a stronger voice. The local government aid. So, in our town, we got hit. We're in a mining layoff right now, and so we do get a small portion of the taconite tax. We had to cut our budget by $350,000. Actually, more than that, what came up today. So, when you're a small town, that really hits you hard. And where do you start cutting off? Do you start cutting off services? You can't. We have the layoff status. It's going to be hitting people in the hardest times in November. They're going to be going on, their unemployment is wrapping up. And then also it's Christmas time, it's heating time, the most expensive times of the year. And so these are things that we have big concerns about, on top of pressures of going to school. How are you going to make your bills? How are you going to pay your bills? So those are all things that we have to work together, and while giving government money to everyone isn't necessarily the answer, but there needs to be something done, realizing that these hardships are approaching the district. It's not just one town, it's a couple towns, it's the people that work for those companies that are laid off as well. So that's what I plan on doing.
Grant, how do you ensure that the Taconite tax stays dedicated to range communities and that local government aid stays at the level or increases for range communities?
Well, I mean, the first thing we do is that we make sure, again, that the Minnesota Republicans don't gain control of the legislature and the governorship. Because we know the last time that the Taconite tax was tried to take to fill in budget deficits was under the governorship of Tim Pawlenty and the Republicans. And so first and foremost, I would be the biggest champion for our Taconite taxes. I know that the Doug Johnson Fund has, $160 million that go towards economic development in our Northland communities. It's critical that we ensure that continues. We know that our local schools get a major amount of support from our Taconite taxes, and we have to protect them. Local government aid is really personal for me because, unbeknownst to many, Hermantown gets $0 in local government aid. I worked with Senator Tom Bach and Representative Mary Murphy to fight for Hermantown's local government aid in the tax bill to have $100,000 a year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about community of the size like we have up here, that makes all the difference in the world. We need to make sure we're protecting the pay down on our property taxes here on the Iron Range. So we have a lot to defend, and we need to make sure that the Minnesota GOP does not try to raid those funds like they have in the past.
Rob Farnsworth, how do you ensure the Taconite tax stays dedicated to the range? And where do you stand on keeping local government aid?
Well, of course, nobody up here can make any promises. But I'm going to fight to make sure that the Taconite tax stays up here on the range where it belongs. Something else that I would look at is the Permanent School Trust Fund. Now, a lot of people don't realize that, but 90% of the Permanent School Trust Fund comes from taconite mining. About 5% comes from logging, which is also mostly in northern Minnesota, and then another 5% is from land sales. The biggest contributor currently to the trust fund is Mintac. Every single Twin Cities school gets more money from the Permanent School Trust Fund than the Mountain Iron School District. The school district in Minneapolis gets more money from the Permanent School Trust Fund than every single Iron Range school combined. So I think we definitely need to look at making those dollars local. And I happened to have a night of light reading the other day where I was perusing the state constitution, and I discovered that actually the way you disperse the trust fund is up to the legislature. So that is something that we could look at doing. And then, of course, local government aid. As a conservative, I believe that spending money locally is money that is spent more wisely. And so I do support an increase in local government aid. I believe that in the tax bill that didn't get passed in the last session, there was $60 million that was allocated to increase local government aid. And I think that's a good thing, particularly for greater Minnesota communities.
Same question.
Well, having worked in local government, I know how absolutely critical the taconite production tax monies, as well as local government aid, county public aid, payment in lieu of taxes, is to our communities. I put together a city budget. It's easy to find expenses. It's very difficult to find revenue. Same thing at the county level. County program aid helps us keep people's property taxes down. It's the same thing there. Easy to find expenses, tough to find revenue. The way we do that is to protect our agencies like the Irrb, who disperse these funds out. And I agree with Grant. There is a real risk in this election of electing Republicans that will go after the money in the Doug Johnson Fund, that will, again, try to raid the Irrb. That would be disastrous to our communities. The money, that's our money. That's our money, and it goes a long way to helping our communities, our schools, our local businesses. We need to do everything we can to protect that fund. As far as local government aid, we need to send legislators to St. Paul that are going to get the work done. We've got a $9 billion surplus. It's going to be closer to $10 billion. We have monies for local government aid. The city of Virginia relies on local government aid. It's $8 million to their budget. We need to be able to send legislators to St. Paul that are going to get the work done to bring back our fair share of that aid to the Iron Range. And the last thing I'll say is, regarding payment in lieu of taxes, it is totally unfair that the Metro receives a higher rate of PILT, has a lower percentage of land that's eligible for PILT, when we here have a much greater percent of land available for PILT payment, but we receive a lower payment for it. We got to have people there that are getting the work done to be able to make sure we're getting our fair share.
Sounds good. I'll bring that message back. Ben, we're going to stay with you just to keep rotating in fairness of first and second. You mentioned the IRRR. Do you support the current structure, or are there any changes, and what changes do you support to the IRRR?
The IRRB is so important to us here for a number of different reasons. Not only helping local businesses receive grants to expand and loans to buy new equipment, but our communities to be able to fund improvements, investments in infrastructure. I support overall the structure currently of the IRRB. I would say there's a few improvements we can make. The IRRB has funds that go towards education through collaboration and technology. And the agency has at times wanted to get out of the business of education. I disagree. I think we should lean into assisting our schools and our communities through improving their physical structures and school equipment through those funds. I also think that small communities under population 1,000 have a tougher time competing for funds at the agency. I would really push towards making an account that is solely for communities under population 1,000.
Rob Farnsworth, any changes to the IRRB and or the current structure?
That's a good question. I think the first thing that we need to look at in regards to the IRRB is how successful they've been in regards to their purpose. And their purpose is to, in general, is to diversify our economy so that we're not as reliant on mining jobs, although we have to recognize that mining is still the backbone of our economy. And so we can look back, I mean, when I was a kid, right here in Hibbing, they built this great big factory over in Brooklyn called the Chopsticks Factory. I think they maybe made 2,000 chopsticks out of there, and that was IRRB funded. The building has been sold multiple times over the years. Not sure who owns it now. We can look at other examples like Excelsior Energy over on the West Range. Tens of millions of dollars were blown without a shovel even getting into the ground. And of course, the most notable example would be the money that went to SR, where they strung us along, and they still have, you know, an SR-related group still has those leases tied up in court that could potentially cost other mines life, basically. So I think we have to look at the successes and maybe not try and hit a home run, but look at, okay, how can we increase jobs in non-mining related areas, you know, in smaller ways, you know, hit a single, hit a double now and then. And then the other thing that I would like to see, I'm also a realtor, I forgot to mention that, that's how I first met Andrea. We have a housing crisis across the country, and particularly we have it here on the Iron Range for a couple of areas. We need more single-family homes. The IRRB could be a huge partner in helping us develop building lots, helping us, you know, entice builders to build single-family homes. And think about it, if we could get, as a realtor, I've had a number of people just in the last 2 years that have called and said, hey, can we, you know, we want to move up to the range, it's safe, you have good schools, you have good health care, can you help us find a house? Imagine if we were to build 200 homes across the Iron Range, and those people from the cities moved up because they're able to work from home. That's like a brand new factory, and they're going to shop in our stores, they're going to eat in our restaurants. And the other thing that I think that they could shift focus to is senior housing. As I've been knocking at doors, I think I hit door number 4,000 earlier this week. A lot of senior citizens have said, hey, we're ready to get out of our house, but there's nowhere to go. So if we want to get into senior housing, we're going to have to move out of the area. And so I think that IRRB could help with that by working with developers to build senior housing so our seniors can stay here. And especially after we get rid of that ridiculous tax on the Social Security benefits, which Democrats have voted against time and again, by the way. And they're going to be able to stay on the range, have more money in their pocket, and still live on their own in a townhome or a twin home or something like that. So I think that's a direction that the IRRB could look at going.
Grant, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Andrea. Thoughts about the IRRB, what it needs to keep and what it needs to change.
Yeah, I thought Ben and Rob covered it well. Lots of issues for us to focus on with the IRRB. I think one of the big things is that Senate District 3 and Senate District 7 would have a place at the table when it comes to the IRRB. One thing that I didn't hear mentioned was investments in clean energy technology. I think that is something we really need to look at with the IRRB. We know that the effects of climate change are here, and so I would very much like to find ways for us to make those types of investments. I know that Senator Tomasoni had a project like that in our region. So, we need to continue focusing on that and making sure we're addressing those issues. That said, the tax bill has been brought up a couple different times, and I want to address that because we know that the elimination of Social Security income taxes is in that bill. We know that an increase to local government aid and the formula that would support our Northland communities is in that bill. We know that historic tax relief for middle-class families in a time when they need it most is in that bill. And Senate Republicans and Senator Jeremy Miller, the majority leader, walked away from that deal. They signed it, the governor signed it, Speaker Hortman signed it, and Senator Jeremy Miller signed it. I have a copy. And they walked away from that deal during this time when we need relief most. And I think that's really telling. One of my top issues is looking at eliminating the tax on Social Security income tax. So the idea that Rob brought up is completely nonsense. This is something that is critically important. Folks on fixed income should not be taxed twice. And it's something we need to fight for. But local government aid and support for families is critical as well. And Republicans should be ashamed that they walked away from that deal.
We'll bring it back to the IRRB. Andrea, your thoughts on the IRRB?
We're talking about the IRRB, right?
We were.
Okay. So, in regards to the IRRB, they have been absolutely wonderful as far as Zoops has been concerned. Zoops, the grocery store. Grant, you weren't here then, but Zoops had to close the Aurora store because of the mining layoffs. 2 of the stores happened to burn down, ironically enough. And the IRRB has been always very good to help and be able to help them get back on their feet again. So I appreciate their concern and their assistance with local businesses. Other changes in the IRRB, I think maybe we need to put some skin in the game when there are loans being put out there for groups that want to, open up a business or an office, let's say in Ely, and they're buying a building, and then all of a sudden a couple years later they sell it for a good profit using IRRB money. I think there should be some sort of, some kind of give and take on that one. If they sell it before X amount of years, then whatever money they received for that building, that should go back because that money was used for mining, or that money that they used was mining money, whether their building was mining related or not, or maybe perhaps against mining. But that should come back. I do it with my kids. I'm like, you know what, we'll give you this much, but you have to put this much forward too. So it's a matter of, again, common sense. How it's your money. How would you want your money spent? Would you want your money just given away? Would you want your money just going out of the area? No, you want to be sure that people are invested in your community, as Zoops has been, and any layoffs with Union probably was just because the stores burned down and they placed them in other stores. But the Zoops has always been very concerned about their employees, as well as the IRRB has been too. So the only change I can really think about that I would probably want to see the IRRB do is if this, then that. So there's more skin in the game for whoever's getting the money.
We'll move forward. The topic is non-ferrous mining. Do you support it, and how do you bring your support or your opposition to St. Paul and advocate for it? We'll start with Rob Farnsworth.
Before I talk about that, because this is going to be pretty quick, I just want to point out, I mean, Grant's new here from North Dakota, so possibly hasn't read the Minnesota Constitution. All tax bills start with the House. So the Senate had an agreement on all of these tax bills. The DFL-controlled House didn't pass them. So you're new, we'll give you a pass on that one. And then as far as the thing about Social Security, it's nonsense. I don't know how it's nonsense. It's been on record over and over that the DFL has voted against it. At the most recent DFL convention, somebody proposed to a plank to their platform that would suggest getting rid of the tax on Social Security benefits. 67% of DFL activists voted against it, which I think is kind of nonsense that they're voting against our seniors. As far as non-ferrous, I support non-ferrous. I support twin metals. I support polymet, tech. You know, all of these, they have the opportunity to bring the resources that we need for a modern economy. They have the opportunity to bring a lot of jobs. And I can't remember the second part of your question.
How do you advocate for that at in the Twin Cities with the legislature?
I think the way we advocate is that we get people up there. It blew my mind when I did the polymet tour, and they explained how there's already currently sulfides leaching from the, I'm going to forget on the word here, the drain field, basically. I can't think of the word. After polymet starts, they're going to get drain tile around that, so there won't be anything leaching, so it'll actually be cleaner when they start production than it is now. Twin metals is going to be at least 400 and up to 5,000 feet underground, so hundreds and probably thousands of feet below the water line. And I think if we can just get people up there to see what the project is, that will really get rid of a lot of the resistance.
Denucci.
Yes, I support precious metal mining. I have supported precious metal mining ever since I was a RAMS member. It's important to our local economy that we continue to expand these types of mining projects. We have a process that needs to be followed, and nobody, just because you're pro-mining doesn't mean you're anti-environment. We want these projects to follow the process and be done safely. But it's not a process if it takes 20 years to get the project to move forward. I would definitely seek legislation that would streamline the process for permitting of these types of projects. As far as how do I advocate for the project, I think the approach we're taking, where we are just beating ourselves over the head and each other's heads and constantly fighting about this topic is not bringing us anywhere. Look, you know, we need to think globally, but mine locally. We all want to move into a green environment. The onset of electric cars, we all want cell phones and iPads, and we want to build wind turbines to have a cleaner environment. We need precious metals to be able to do that. So instead of choosing to have the ethics of pushing the development of these types of projects in third world countries, where they use child labor, they do not have an EPA, an OSHA, an MSHA, why not do it here, where we can do it safer and better than anyone else in the world, using the world's greatest workforce.
Irrb.
So I agree with that. We have an amazing workforce, a very skilled workforce. We don't want to see this workforce leave. I was a sub at the school for, 6 or 7 years, and that was one thing that I spoke with the kids about. What do you want to do when you graduate? Where do you want to go? I can tell you right now, about 80% of them said, we don't want to leave here, but there aren't any jobs here for us. And they wanted to have families. They wanted to build their home within the community that they grew up in. And that's something that really struck with me. And it's always resonated with me because I see my own children. You know, my son's at the U of M down in Minneapolis. I'm worried about him. My twins are up here working, and my third daughter lives up here too, right across the street from us, and I'm able to watch my grandson grow. It's really enriching, and to see those people say they don't want to leave, that really tugs at my strings. So I want to make sure that that continues to happen, that we're able to have these sustaining jobs for these people to come here. Tourism is great, no doubt about it. It can go hand in hand, as we have done for all these years. It can go hand in hand. We have some of the cleanest water. We've already proved to people that we have the cleanest water up here. We're doing it right. And when I see legislators from down in the Twin Cities telling us what to do with our water, I really think that they need to mind their own bobber. And those of you all up here know that saying. They need to pay attention to their own areas because they've got worse water than what we have up here. And we've been doing mining and tourism together, hand in hand, for 150 years with not the technology that we have now. We need to be the leaders that we are meant to be with the God-given minerals that we have.
Grant, your position on non-ferrous mining and how you advocated for it in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, so I think everybody said what I think we all think. I support these projects. I support the objective process that's used to analyze these projects. And you know, I think bringing that independent voice that I've been advocating for to St. Paul would be huge for the mining industry and for this issue. You know, I addressed climate change earlier. You know, and our unions. We need to make sure that we have the minerals we need to address climate change. We need the union jobs of the future that are going to employ people in our region. You know, I want to talk about Andrea's earlier statement about ZUBs and the IRRB. You know, Andrea, it sounds like, accepted some public money and yet laid off union workers. That's not right. If the IRRB or a business is getting money from a public entity, then to me, we should make sure that we're supporting a union workforce. That's part of my core values. It's what we believe up here in the Iron Range. And so, you know, that I think is important. You know, I'm supported by every single labor and trade organization on the Iron Range and in the Northland, including the building trades. They know who I am. They know where I stand. They know that I'll fight for workers' rights and the projects that are important for them. And I think that speaks for itself.
I want to shift to recreation and infrastructure for recreation. What types of projects should the states support through bonding and other funding when it comes to recreation? And we'll start with you, Grant.
You know, we live in one of the areas that's the most visited part of our state. It's the most beautiful part of Minnesota and our entire region. In fact, some of the areas in our area are the most visited in the country. So, you know, fighting for our outdoor recreation, fighting for hunting, fighting for, you know, for all of those things is critically important. ATV trails, you know, paved trails, our outdoors, you know, that is something that you know, is really the reason my wife and I moved here. I know it's funny. It's, oh my gosh, I was born somewhere else. I can't believe I chose to be born somewhere else. What matters is that I chose to live here. I chose to raise my son and daughter here. My wife and I chose to have our careers here. If we're going to grow, if we're going to be a community that is prosperous, we need people to choose the Northland, and that's what I do. So for Andrea to attack me for choosing to live here and raise my kids here, I think is unfair. And so I will always fight for our region and the things that matter most to us and why people choose to live and visit here.
Andrea, the question is, how do we invest in more recreation, and what is the state's role in investing in recreation and infrastructure on the Iron Range?
Well, the state has already been investing in this area, and for the record, Grant, I'm not from here also. I've lived up here 30 years, so I've also chosen to live here also and raise my family. So thank you for pointing that out, but I've been here a bit longer. And so, yeah, the state has helped the city of Babbitt. We are expanding into the RV park campground, which is amazing. They've helped us previously with our public landing, which is also great. And, you know, I mean, I really like seeing that all the ATVs that are coming around, I see them constantly because I'm always on the road. The bike trails, the way they're reclaiming the mines, which is super, because that's how they're always done. They need to figure out what they're going to do with the mine before it even opens. So the state understands that there's always a plan ahead. And so I can appreciate the forethought and the planning that goes into all that, because a lot of people don't see that ahead of time. But yeah, that's what I think is really fantastic. So not only to make this area grow as far as recreation goes, because that increases tourism, but then also helping the district go into another avenue, which we can expand on. So I appreciate that.
Ben, your thoughts, recreation, and how the state should invest further in infrastructure?
These types of investment are a huge quality of life issue for us here, and as well as a huge boom to our local economies. Everybody nowadays has an ATV or a side-by-side, and mountain biking has become increasingly popular. That's what people like to do up here. You know, we work hard here, we play hard here, and part of that is getting out in the outdoors, getting on your mountain bike or on your side-by-side and riding the trails. There's a definite benefit to this as our local businesses reap the benefits of trail systems that are expanded and developed and connected. As a small business owner, I know when that group of side-by-sides or snowmobiles shows up, boy, it's gonna help make your week. It's gonna help you keep the lights on. It's going to help you pay your bills. It's good for our local economies. So that being said, I support all of the ways that bonding can be used to improve campgrounds, boat landings, trail systems. I've worked to create a snowmobile trail that connects Nashwauk and Keewatin. I've worked to create an ATV trail that connects Nashwauk with the main trail, and I've been able to allocate or go out and get funds that will plan for a 7-mile mountain bike trail to hopefully someday be built in the city of Nashwauk. I know how important these types of endeavors are. I've worked on them, and I think there's a real desire for cities, counties, and even states to expand and connect. We want to go to different places and see different sites. We want different cities' populations to come to our cities and spend a few bucks while doing it. So again, I support any way we can use monies to expand and help our tourism industry.
Rob, question is, where and how should the state invest in recreation infrastructure for the range?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is say that the funding that goes to trails is disproportionate. Well, maybe not disproportionately going to the Metro, to the Met Council. And I think you look at the legacy funding, I think the split is 40-40-20. So Met Council, I think it's 40, we get 40, and I can't remember where the other 20 goes. And I think that we, in greater Minnesota, that have thousands and thousands of more miles of trails, we deserve more of that legacy funding. And anecdotally, here's the evidence. Go to Hinckley on any Friday, any day of any week of the year, and stand on the bridge and count how many vehicles you see coming north with side-by-sides or snowmobiles or boats or whatever. And then count the number of cars going the other way for people that want to go use the trails down in Minneapolis. People aren't going to Minneapolis to use their trails. People from Minneapolis are coming here to use our trails, and yet they get more money. Somebody, I think it was Ben that mentioned, they get more money for Hiawatha Falls from PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. We have far more state land that we don't get any property taxes on. We should be getting way more of that PILT money. Senator Bach actually was working on legislation, if the tax bill had been passed, that would have increased I think by 10, I have it written down here, $10 million, $2.2 million would have gone just to St. Louis County. And we can use that along, legacy money, increased bill money, along with the resources of the IRRB to continue to add to our world-class trail system. And one last thing, so the bike trail over in Chisholm that they just opened, I think, a year or two ago, As of June this year, I believe they were up to 35,000 people that had already come through there. And a lot of those people that are coming to our area, using our hotels, eating at our restaurants, that is a good thing for us to use the mines that the Metro is like, oh, look at how you've polluted the mines. What are you talking about? Look at your own city that you allowed to burn for 2 days. That's a lot more pollution than we've had at the mines. And we're able to reclaim those for really good recreational use, world-class recreational use.
It's time to wrap up. I know that you all have another event to go to, and we have some House candidates who've been patiently waiting. So we have about 7 minutes. In your closing remark, how do you get your work done without special session? We'll start with you, Rob, and we'll come right down the line.
How do we get our work done without special session?
If you're a legislator.
If I'm a legislator. Well, Tom Bach has actually kind of set the example. So we needed a legislative session to deal with the Canastillo pit problem. And for those who don't know, the Canastillo pit is like this close to starting to boil over and flood the city of Beauvais. And so they were able to use loans from the Irrb. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody thinks that this is a good idea. When I talked to Senator Bach about it, he's like, I don't want this to be a precedent. This is not our problem. But that's one of the resources that we can use until we get back into legislative session to repay the Irrb of those funds. But we just have to get creative because, I mean, at this point, it's looking like the governor is not going to call a special session until possibly after the election. So we're just going to have to work together and roll up our sleeves and get the work done.
Ben?
I think it's going to be hard to get any type of work done without a special session. You know, the special session is needed. You know, when you think about this area, we need a bonding bill. Our infrastructure up throughout the district is crumbling. It's at an age where it's past its useful life. We need legislators that are going to support bonding bills to replace our aged infrastructure. I think that we need to continue to push to see if we can get a special session. It puts our communities at a huge disadvantage. Not being able to have local government aid, not being able to provide relief, not being able to help fund our schools. I think it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Andrea?
Thank you. So, just like Rob mentioned, the Aurora, there's a similar situation going on in Aurora right now. And they are also very close to overflowing, not as close as the Canastillo pit. But you know what? That's what makes Rangers so awesome, is they're all willing to pitch in and do what it takes to make sure that this doesn't happen. They know there's going to be an end in the future, but they know this needs to happen now. Similar situation is the layoffs right now. I can't tell you how many people are already facing layoffs, the unemployment benefits running out at the end of November, or October, and already saying, what do you need to get done? We are here to help you. We need to get this done. So they see these emergencies and they're not going to sit around and say, yeah, we're just going to wait till we're back at work. That's what makes the Iron Range so amazing. These people are here and they're ready to work and do what it takes to get it done without having that dollar sign in front of them. The projects that we have ahead, they're great. They have time limits. Stuff needs to happen. Unfortunately, that has to be on the back burner until the special session happens. So until then, it's business as usual, and you know it's going to happen, but that's the perseverance of the Iron Rangers.
Great.
A special session is critical. It's one of the biggest things that I've been pushing for since announcing my candidacy. Our North Shore miners need relief now, not come February. Their unemployment insurance will end soon. Our communities need a bonding bill. We have several projects that communities like mine in Hermantown are relying on from a bonding bill. Word on the street is that a bonding bill only proposal was proposed and the Republicans declined it. That is irresponsible and ridiculous. We need to make sure that we're pushing as hard as we possibly can to get a special session, because it's all on the table right now. Our families need relief right now when they need it most. Our seniors need the elimination of that double tax on Social Security. And, Andrea, I haven't heard her once. She's in her second decade as a politician on the range, and not once have I heard her advocate for a special session. She's in the party with Senator Jeremy Miller. Why isn't she asking and demanding that a special session be made for the North Shore miners in her community? This is getting ridiculous. So I will always fight for our region. I will always speak out, and I will be an advocate to get the job done and just deliver for our Northland communities.
I want to thank everyone, thank our candidates, thank RAMS, thank the Mesabi Tribune, and thank Hibbing Public Access. And schools, we're going to take about a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll have our house candidates here. Thanks, guys.
cheap seats. You're up in the cheap seats. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just teasing. Hi, Andrea. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming out here. Yeah. Beautiful. Hey. Yeah. Thanks. Well, it's in my phone. I don't have my phone. Like in like 2 decades. What happened? No, I'm just here. 8. No, I've been here for 8 years. 10. So like not even. I'm not even on my second. I'm not even on my second. Yeah, like I don't even know where that is. But I'm an independent contractor. Like none of my realtors have been laid off. And the employees at the store were laid off because, well, I don't know, they were on fire. So, oh God, sorry.
All right. Welcome back. Hope everybody got a little break, but we're going to dive right back in with our House candidates. Roger Scraba, Rob Eklund, Spencer Igo, Julie Sandstad, Matt Norrie, and Dave Lislegar. And since we had 4 people before and they didn't really follow the time rule, I'll keep you guys on a tight leash. Let's keep our answers short. It's okay to say, I agree with so-and-so, let's move on to the next question. But I do want to cover a lot of content here. So as we get started, either make an opening statement, introduce yourself, or answer this question. Iron Range towns have been losing population, and schools have seen declining enrollment. What do you see your role in ensuring that students in the Iron Range have the best public education system? Roger, we'll start with you and we'll go down the line.
Thank you.
Take the mic, please.
Yep. Thank you, RAMS. I'm a member of RAMS. I'm the mayor of Ely. To answer the question, I've been involved in politics a long time, and I'm going to jump into the question right away. Repeat it again, though, please.
Iron Range towns have been losing population
Yes.
and declining enrollment. How do you ensure that we have the very best public school system?
Well, the Democrats keep throwing millions and millions and millions of dollars at it, and it keeps getting, I'm not sure what it is right now. I'm really disappointed in our school system where we are now that we found out that the Minnesota Department of Education has also lost a few dollars here and there, and no one knows where it went. I'm more concerned about northern Minnesota. How are we going to grow our population? I've been door knocking and talking to communities, Beaver Bay, Silver Bay, International Falls. I've been everywhere and talking to different communities. The issue is population loss. The fewer people we have in northern Minnesota, the fewer students. The harder it is to operate a school. Just talking to the mayor of Tower, who lost their school, they're kind of like, yeah, we know the feeling, we know what's going on. Ely, we're investing about $27 million in a new school, and our population went to 3,200. I'm concerned we have to get more jobs up here, or we have to figure out how to set the job. The metro area keeps growing. Why? Are there incentives in the metro area that we don't have? Are there incentives that we can use to get jobs up here? Woodbury's overgrown. Maybe we can get some of those people in Woodbury to come up to the Iron Range, to Ely, and find a way to make the businesses, make it more affordable for them to come here. I see our school system, in my opinion, I see our school system is failing right now, and I'm not sure the proper way to fix it. I have not been in the legislature to watch it, but I really want to look. I want to work to make it better, because when I went to high school, we had a great opportunity, and I hope to make it good again. Thank you.
Rob Eklund.
Well, thank you, and thank you, RAMS, for setting this up. I'm Rob Eklund from International Falls, and that's a terrific question. One of the things that I've been the champion of since I've been at the legislature is broadband funding. And you're seeing broadband projects go in all across rural Minnesota. Broadband is the economic driver for our new economy. That's how we're going to start getting new people here, by attracting folks that can work here. We proved during the pandemic that some folks can work from home and can be very productive. And so that's one of the things that we need to do. We also need to support our mining projects, especially our taconite plants that are working now. And we need to do what we can to make sure whether we can or can't do copper nickel safely and easily. Those are the things we need to do to bring more people to the area and help our schools prosper. The only way you can get our schools to prosper is to have a better tax base, and these are the type of things that we can do as a community and as an Iron Range, working collectively to make sure they happen.
Spencer?
Thank you. Well, yes, I'm Spencer Igo. I'm the current state representative for Itasca and Cass counties. So this is a multifaceted question. I think we need to start with, there's kind of a way I look at policy and how we work on it in the state of Minnesota. And is the policy going to give Minnesotans a hand up, or is it going to give Minnesotans a handout? So when it comes to education, how we can help our local schools, we need to be talking to our local educators. We need to be talking to our superintendents. We need to be talking to our school boards, because no one knows better what our students and our kids need than those people. So there's tons of policy we can do that to make sure our school districts can apply that to their districts. Now, when it comes to some types of education inside our school districts, we need to be doing more to support kind of an all-of-the-above approach for students to be able to pursue whatever they wish. Whether that's going into STEM, whether they want to go to a four-year education, or maybe that's opening up avenues for them to be able to work with the trades and apprenticeships so they can get real-world skills, so when they graduate high school, they're entering our workforce. That's how we start retaining our youth, that's how we start growing our communities. I think we also couple that, Rob and Roger made a lot of really good points there about retaining people. I agree with all those statements. But one observation that I have is that many of my friends who have left the region and are now getting married and having their first children are realizing the call to return home. And we as a community, all across the range, need to come together in this era of partnerships to work together to open up our homes and our regions to bring these people back. And we're going to bring about the world of tomorrow. We are going to bring our best days to reality. Thank you.
Julie?
I'm Julie Sandstad. I am the state representative out of the current 6A, which will somehow become 7A here eventually. I am a hometown girl. Welcome to my alma mater. You are sitting in the castle in the wilderness. This was our beautiful high school built in the 1920s, built by mining dollars. How do we keep our students here? How do we strengthen our education? We have to have jobs. We have to be protecting the jobs that we currently have, and we have to be diversifying the economy to be drawing in additional jobs. Without employees, without the jobs up here, we don't have students. But once we have those students, we need to make sure they have the best education possible. I am very, very proud of public education and the work that our educators and our paraprofessionals and our school districts are doing. This is no easy task. And how do we make sure that they have what they need, our students have what they need in the classroom? We give our teachers the supports they need. It is no longer just a teacher that is needed in a classroom. We need our ESPs. Our school districts need school nurses, we need counselors, we need school social workers. Our communities up here that are struggling need addiction treatment centers, we need mental health supports in order to make our students succeed. We need to respect our profession of educators. We cannot continue to be talking about failed education and failed teachers constantly. It's disrespectful to the profession. And unless you've been in a classroom and worked with students, you have no idea the needs that teachers are dealing with every day. We are not just educators. We have to be the parent, the counselor, the nurse, the spiritual advisor for some of them. Our list is not just about sitting down and doing our job anymore. Our kids are coming into the classroom sometimes without a home, sometimes without a meal. We need to make sure that in order for our schools to survive, our students have what they need that's in and outside of the classroom.
Thank you everybody for being here. My name is Matt Norrie. I'm running for House District 7B. I definitely agree with everybody up here. Our schools are very important. I think that coming from a small business background, business is so important to a community because it brings in more people and obviously more dollars. So I think if we have a better tax structure for our small business especially and our large industry, that will retain and attract more people, which will bring more kids into our schools. I'm very fortunate enough to live in Virginia, Minnesota, where my kids do attend public school. I think it's an absolutely great place to grow up and go to school. My wife was a paraprofessional for a while, so I do understand the needs for all sorts of different factors in the school. But what I really want to do is keep more local teachers here, and I feel like if we can just keep more jobs here, keep more families here, that will raise more people that would love to go into the profession of teaching, and that will foster more community involvement because now you know who your teacher is of your child, and I think that is by far the most important thing, to have community and education together. So thank you very much.
Dave Lisliger.
Well, I would like to thank all of you guys for coming out, and Mesabi Daily News and RAMS for hosting this, and for our moderator coming up. You do an outstanding job in reporting across the state of Minnesota. So, and thanks to all the panelists up here. I think that we all have a heart for the region and to represent the people. So I think the question was declining population, and I think that there's a couple different reasons. If you go back in the 1950s, the family structure, had 5 kids. And then over time, it goes from 5 to, 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, and so we have less. And then as the mining industry went and transitioned to bigger equipment, more modernization, the workforce is less. And that's just a reality. When we talk about education and we talk about the foundation, that is what we need to build, is a solid foundation. Investing in education, investing in our schools, investing in the best. And that is what the Iron Range has done over the years, and I think it's important that we can continue to do it. It's bricks and mortar, but it's also the investment in our children and in our teachers. And as we see, people with mental health and all the different challenges, my heart goes out to the teachers. It's one of the most difficult professions to do. You think about it, 7 hours a day, those teachers are with your children. They care for them, they teach them, they mentor them. They deal with all of the issues that they have. So we do need to invest, and I think that that's part of it, but it's building a foundation. As a former city councilor and as a former mayor, and in fighting for these education and the investment in our schools, you look at the Mesabi East, what a wonderful facility with that investment. You look at Rock Ridge, what a wonderful investment. Ely's in the process of making an investment. Mountain Iron, all of the different schools and the county schools making that investment, that is setting the foundation for our children. But it comes down to jobs. We need to unleash, we need to protect what we have, and we need to expand. We need to expand in copper nickel mining. We need to diversify our economy. Rob talked about broadband. They talk about equity and equality across the state of Minnesota. We don't have that up here. And in some sense, we're being left behind. And those kind of investments are going to help build the foundation for the future. Thank you.
Dave, we're going to start the next question with you. What should be the focus of the IRRB, and are there any changes in the structure that you would support?
Well, I think that we need to, IRRB serves multiple purposes, and I think that the IRRB needs to focus on economic development, but also supporting the communities. And I want to talk a little bit, there's a misconception across the Iron Range of where the money comes from. A lot of people think that we're sending the money south. That's not true. The mining companies, they pay a production tax in lieu of property tax. And every single one of them dollars stay here. And they go to the IRRB. And they invest in multiple things. In small communities, it's important to understand this. In small communities, they don't have the capital. They don't have the tax base. They don't have the wealth to do all the local projects themselves. That's where the IRRB and bonding is essential to make it successful. The IRRB is extremely important. That is our dollars. That is the Iron Range's dollars. And I promise you that no dollars, production tax dollars, in lieu of property tax from the mining companies, leaves. When people say that it's leaving here, they got to keep in mind where that stuff's coming from. Those are royalties. That's the misconception. Those are royalties, either owned by the state of Minnesota or they're private. And then those dollars circulate all around. The IRRB is an extremely important agency that needs to focus on broadband, it needs to focus on infrastructure, and it needs to focus on job creation to diversify our economy while supporting our number one, and that is the mining industry and supporting our schools.
Matt Norrie?
Well, I also agree that the IRRB is very, very important to our region, especially because all the money does come from our great industry. I got to witness firsthand what great things the IRRB can do for small business. Being in the beverage wholesale business, there was a lot of startups that came with IRRB dollars. For me, I believe that we need to protect the fund at all costs. I know that it was pillaged at one point. As a legislator, I would make sure that that was protected. It would never go anywhere but this region. And I think that's kind of all I got there. So.
Julie?
I definitely think the IRRB's, purpose and function is economic development, but that takes on many different facets. And I know the other representatives mentioned it, we'll talk more about that, but one of them is the broadband issue, which is a huge economic driver in our region, and it's going to continue to be so as we talk about growing the economy and growing the population. Broadband is critical. You cannot attract business or families if you didn't have sewer or water or electric hookups, people wouldn't come. Today, we're living in an age that if you don't have broadband, they're not going to come. So we need that. So the role of the IRRB is economic development, but they are also partnering with local governments. We saw this firsthand just recently over at the Canisteo pit. We have a huge public safety issue that is pending. And had it not been for the IRRB and their funding, we really scrambling to get things done. So the agency is working with the state government, the agency is working with local government, it's working with large business, small business, but again, it's advancing the Iron Range. That is really the role. It is advancing business and population and initiatives that are of the Iron Range, born on the Iron Range, and within the Taconite assistance area.
Spencer?
So to kind of take the conversation in a different route, you know, I think the most important thing to remember about the IRRR is how unique it is. It is about the only state agency in the entire country that sees revenues come from the region that they're in and stay there. It is literally the only, I mean, when you talk to legislators from around the country, they are baffled by this. And that just shows how special it is. To show how great it is, you know, so many projects, and we just heard about how many ways it's lifted up communities. One of those ways is something that I worked on in the past 2 years in the legislature with Senator Bach. That was the Huber project in Cohasset. A $550 million investment on the western part of the range, 150 jobs in a Fortune 20 company. Why were they able to look at locating here and coming to the range in northeastern Minnesota? Because of the IRRR. Not only because of the funds and dollars that exist there to help with startup and bringing companies here, but with the amount of expertise and knowledge that they have there to dive into our region and give the data needed to market us. And I think, you know, the question was, how can we add changes to the IRRR? And I think that's the one thing, you know, everything we're all going to talk about here, most of us agree on. But I think one avenue we really need to go down is how we can advertise our region for how special it really is. I mean, I'm running for this office because this is my home. And the man I am today is because of the blessing I had being raised here. So if we at the IRRB can use the dollars that come from our region to grow it by advertising how amazing it is with the things that we're doing with the funds there, imagine the world we can have, imagine the range we can have in the years to come, and that's what I think we should do. Thank you.
So a few years back, I think 5 or 6, we had an audit of the IRRR, and there was, that was the change. Now it's the IRRR, one of them. It used to be IRRB. I still call it the IRRB, just because I do. But the audit took care of a lot of issues that we had with the IRRB, and so I don't think because of that, because the changes that are made, I don't think at that time, I don't think there does need to be a lot of changes. I think we can be proud of what the IRRB has done through working through economic development. Huber projects, Representative Igo brought up, took a lot of work by staff to bring that to hopefully fruition. But the other thing we need to talk about is economic diversity, because this is, you know, we stand on the 3 things: timber, taconite, tourism. But in order to grow the region, we need to diversify as well. We need to support all of those, but we need to start working on building up the cottage industries, building up the things that we can do through broadband that Representative Sandstad, Representative Lisgard just brought up. I truly believe that broadband is going to be what's going to be the difference in northern Minnesota's economy in the years to come. And I think we're uniquely situated to do that. Last session, we passed a broadband bill that raises the cap and lowers the match. That's going to be terrific for northern Minnesota to be able to do that, because we have big townships that don't have a lot of people in them, they have a lot of area, and they can't afford to come up with the dollars that they need to get broadband. I'm looking at one of my friends now that's not, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about. So these are the kind of things that I think the IRRB can get more actively involved in to make our economy more diversified and ready to move into the 21st century.
Roger.
Thank you. It would be easy just to say, I agree with everyone and move on. But I do want to say a couple things, because I do agree, everyone. And I'm marking the key words here, like broadband's been said 5 times now by all of us at some point. So it is obviously a very big thing. The city of Ely put in our own broadband. IRRB helped us. We used our PPP money plus the IRRB. I can list the things that we have used, the city of Ely has used the IRRB as a match for. The key to the IRRB funding for any infrastructure or anything, the downtown revitalization, the business development, the schools, the school tax, we as a community have to put some skin in the game, some money in the game. And it's important. Some of the communities think they should just get money from the IRRB and that should be the way it is. But when you put a little bit in, like Ely will put in 400,000, go to the IRRB and get 150. Then we go to CDBG and get 100. And then we go to EDA and get, you know, $500,000 or $1 million. And that's how you build the projects. And that IRRB is the place where it starts. So, and the staff, I want to thank the staff and Mark Phillips for the fantastic job they do. As a legislator, I will protect and make sure the IRRB stays the way it is. I have absolutely nothing against it. I think it's a wonderful organization, and it is so unique that when Commissioner Surdich was IRRB commissioner, he had a whole program that he took around the state, and we showed it at a League of Minnesota Cities to a bunch of windmill people in southern Minnesota and said, this is what you guys need to do. You need to organize yourselves like us and go to the legislature and tell them that you want tax money from the windmills so that you guys can reinvest in yourselves. And it is so unique, Spencer, you are correct, and we need to emulate it in other places in the state, and I just think it's something we should protect and we should be proud of.
That was one little thing, right, Andrew? Just kidding. Just I'm going to start this next question with Representative Sandstad. There remains conversation, conflict around non-ferrous mining. How do we break the logjam, and what lessons can be learned from the last couple of years about the debate?
Well, let's just start with a little question there. Okay, first of all, we have to talk facts. There is so much misinformation being put out, and much of what you hear around non-ferrous mining is from groups that actually exist only to stop a process. I think we would be well served to have something like Canada does with a mining ministry. These are really large, lofty goals, but I think Minnesota would do well to have something like that. We need to just come to terms with the fact that we are living in a century right now that is requiring non-ferrous materials. We need the critical minerals that Minnesota is blessed with, that we are blessed with here on the Iron Range and in the Duluth Complex, in the Talon Complex, in abundance. We need to do this safely. I have every confidence as a person who has grown up on the range that we can do this safely. We live in a mining community. We have a beautiful environment. We have some of the cleanest waters, period. And that doesn't have to change. I do think that we need to just I think people in general are afraid of change. Change itself can be a very scary thing, and when you're talking about mining that we haven't had on the Iron Range, that's change. We've seen it done poorly in other countries, and we know that that isn't a Minnesota way. That's not the way it's going to happen when it happens here on the range. We can't have shortcuts, we can't cut corners. We need to do it properly. But we need to have a very transparent process. We need to make it clear what our goals are. As an educator, we have SMART goals. We state our objective. They're time-bound. We know exactly what we need to do. It shouldn't be that complex when it comes to permitting and the mining industry. We can do this better. We just need to have timelines. The other thing that we really need to do is we need to staff our offices. When we're talking, whether it's the DNR or different agencies, we have so many positions right now that are unfilled, and the permitting process is taking far too long because we don't have the staff. We need to get those people in the position. We need to get the right people in the position, and we need to pay them a salary that is competitive so they are not going out into private industry. We don't need to be afraid of change. And I know we can do non-ferrous mining here in northeastern Minnesota, in northern Minnesota, safely.
Spencer?
So, I'm a very proud and loud supporter of non-ferrous mining. In fact, that was one of the first bills I wrote when I entered the legislature, was to make Minnesota a mining-friendly state. The main part of this question is how do we stop the logjam? Since leaving the legislature adjourned, I've actually been spending the summer talking to legislatures from around the state, having long conversations, educating them, and building relationships. Because the thing is that right now it may be copper nickel mining, right? Right now it's polymet and Talon and Tech. But moving forward, it's affecting everything. And it was mentioned before me here, you know, the DNR, the MPCA, we need to make sure that they're fully staffed. Not only that, but they need to be accountable to the taxpayers. They are the state agencies that are supposed to work for us. And when we have mining companies that are coming to our Northland, coming to the range, and want to do value-added mining in our communities, to make our communities strong and build them, we can't have their requests for permits getting put in the bottom desk drawer and being stuck there for 17 years. That's unacceptable. We need to start investing in policy that's going to hold our state agencies accountable so we in our communities that here are waiting on these projects can start supporting them and seeing their fruition. With that, we also need to make sure we are loud advocates in St. Paul. When I was in St. Paul, I took the House floor over a dozen times to fight for mining. I cannot say the same for my colleagues on the stage today. I stood there and fought for mining and asked for their votes and amendments to try and get some pro-mining legislation passed in the Minnesota House. It was shot down time and time and again. We need to stand united on this front and not let party differences decide whether or not we get things done. And that is my commitment to you. Thank you.
Rob?
It would be nice if the amendments were germane to the bill that we were talking about, but we'll discuss that at a later point. The logjam that's going on right now is exactly what Representative Igo just brought up, the differences between being a Republican and being a Democrat. Washington politics has come to Minnesota. It's ugly, it's not nice, and until we figure out how to get past that, we're going to have a hard time getting anything done. But back to the copper-nickel non-ferrous mining. Our agencies are accountable, they are understaffed. They are not here to promote the mining industry. They are here to help the mining industry through their permitting process, through the hurdles that need to be done. They're supposed to be non-biased. They are not, like I said, they are not promoters. If we're going to promote anything in the state of Minnesota, then we need to develop legislation that does just that. Some of us attempted to do that a while back with Office of Outdoor Recreation. It hasn't got funded yet, but it's an idea. So getting past the logjam is to try to figure out how we can get along together. And I think if you take a look at legislation that I've done across the spectrum, I would guess, and you can check me on this, but probably 75% of the bills I introduce have a Republican lawmaker on the bill. Why do I do this? One of the first bills I did last session went to Representative Igo. I got him as number 2 on an ATV bill because I wanted to show unity across the district. That's how we get things done, by working together and figuring out how we can get past our differences and get something accomplished. And until we get to that point, I see a long struggle ahead for us. But I'm committed to working with my allies across the aisle where it makes sense and where it's necessary.
Roger?
Thank you. Non-ferrous mining, how do we get it across the goal line? In 1902, we had a Model A car, and in 2022, we have Teslas, Model Ys. Do we compare the two when we talk about vehicles? We don't. In 1902, copper-nickel mining existed. In 2022, we have copper-nickel mining. Why are they still being compared? They shouldn't even be compared. They're two different processes. And in 2022, the regulatory agencies, whether they're staffed or not, need to be held to a timeline. That's where our shortcoming is. I'm chairman of St. Louis County Planning Commission, and when you bring in a variance or a conditional use permit, we have 90 days to act on it. If we do not act on it in 90 days, it automatically becomes what you wanted. So I would propose the same for a mining permit, to agree, I'm not going to pick a time, but I would agree with the members across the aisle and say, what is a good time? Is 2 years, is 3 years? And then we sit down and say, in 3 years, all the regulatory agencies are going to have their stuff together. If there's not, and there can be many reasons, we will work together to find a date. But to have a corporation or a company or anybody come and say, I want to start a business in your community, and 20 years later, like, we're still here, we still want to start the business. It's not fair, and it's just not right as who we are as people. And just as a side note, I just don't understand the DFL leadership when it comes to copper nickel mining. I just don't understand it. It's like it doesn't come up in meetings and hearings, and maybe I'm not following it close enough, but I truly believe that the DFL right now does not want to support it. And I'm hoping that in the future we can get those feet. I'm from Ely. I'm at ground zero. The mining is, 15 miles from my house is where they want to do it. I support it. I know who they are. I know what they are. I would love to take legislators up to Ely. I would love to take them on a canoe trip to Curtin Falls on Crooked Lake on the Canadian border and show them if anything is polluted, it's going to come right through here. Do you want to be part of the pollution? I don't want to be. Nobody wants to be. So if they see the value, what we have, and not to change it, I think we can have copper nickel mining done safely like they're doing in Canada right now. Thank you.
Dave, let's look at.
Thank you. Follow the process, meet or exceed both state and federal standards, and allow these businesses to move forward. It's not that complicated. We live in a global economy, we all can agree with that, but we also live in a global environment. And we have no business exporting our jobs and this country's conscience overseas to third world countries that don't have the same labor or environmental standards. That is a problem that we need to address. We need to streamline. We need to streamline the permitting. Keep in mind, the opposition's goal is to delay to kill the project. And they do that because capital will leave where it's not welcome. And that's extremely important to understand. I have to address Representative Igo. I never once, ever voted against mining. What he is referring to, and I'm sure Julie's going to want to talk about it, he's referring to an amendment that he offered. He offered this amendment on the climate and energy bill, where it was not ruled germane. In politics, there's procedures. And if you're going to offer an amendment, it has to be germane to the bill. What he didn't do, and it bothers me that he's trying to bring this up, because I take it real personal. He didn't offer it on the environment bill, where it was germane. Rob, Julie, or I, we voted to uphold the ruling of the Speaker that it was not germane. Never once did we vote against his bill. That is the facts, and that is the truth. My grandfather helped build Irrb Mining Company that became LTV, where I all work. I was the former mayor and city council of Aurora. You know, remember the Polymet and the 13 buses? That was me. Steve Georgie with RAMS, every stage, every rally that Nancy McCready went to, I helped set the stage. I was there every step of the way. I went from local to state to Washington, D.C. to advocate for mining. We have a wonderful opportunity. It is the next generation. This world is transitioning, and that transition needs these minerals. And we have the opportunity to do it here. We have to stop using mining as a political football to win elections. That does need to stop. Because at the end of the day, we all do better when we work together.
Well, I am a very big proponent of the copper nickel mining. Just a fun story, I was in the 9th grade in 2001 when Polymet came in and they said, you will be the first graduating class to have jobs at our mine. And that excited me because all my friends were going to stay around the area, and obviously that has been about, 22 years since. I think our permitting process is very flawed. we need to, if Canada with in the same watershed can permit a gold mine in 5 years, I don't know why we can't do the same thing. This is hundreds of jobs, and I've once been told that this is a Super Bowl every year for northeastern Minnesota, about $500 million economic impact to have just one of these operations opened. There's no reason why these are not up and running right now. We have been mining in this region for over 130 years. We do it better than anybody. We have been credited with winning 2 world wars because of what we've done. We've built every city in the nation. And with the future, precious metals are the future, and the Iron Range needs to be the leader and build the future. So I don't know how else to say better than that, but Iron Range first, and let's make the next century ours.
We have about 15 minutes left, so I want to keep going, get through at least 2 more questions. Spencer, I'm going to start this one with you. Small towns are relying on local government aid. Groups have been working on a formula to increase local government aid. How do you see LGA impacting the towns that you represent or want to represent, and how would you change it in the future?
So that's a really good question, right? LGA is very critical, right, for a lot of our range communities. I mean, it's one of those ways, again, we can give a hand up to local communities to make sure they stay strong and vibrant. I mean, it's no surprise, one of the biggest things we saw this year that I've been hearing at the doors and gotten a lot of personal phone calls about has been people's rising valuations on their homes, right? I believe Itasca County was number 2 in the state, and I think St. Louis County was in the top 10. LGA is one of those things that helps off-put that. If cities and small towns and communities can keep their levies lower with those funds. So when it comes down to that formula, it's incredibly complex, right? And it's worth time for us to sit down as bipartisan legislatures to actually work through the process and make sure that it's a fair system that works for everyone, whether it be on the Iron Range, whether it be in southern Minnesota, whether it be in western Minnesota. We need to be making sure to do things that lift up all communities and all Minnesotans so we can all prosper together. I'll try to keep it quick so we can get through those questions.
No, I'm going to go to Julie, just out of keeping the races together. And
No, that's great. That's great. So, LGA, critically important. Hibbing has one of the largest square mileage footprints for communities up here. The LGA that they currently get is not enough for the roads they have to plow, etc. We need to have those fixes. Those fixes were in the tax bill. Those fixes were in the tax bill, along with county program aid, which is similar. It helps with the county programs that we have. Again, all in the tax bill. In the tax bill this time, Social Security taxes eliminated for our seniors. In the tax bill, which sat dead, which sat going nowhere. And unfortunately, we can say we support these things, but Republicans walked away on a tax bill. They walked away from the LGA they say they support. They walked away from eliminating taxes on Social Security. They walked away from county program aid. They walked away from lowering your property taxes. We had the surplus, we had the ability to do that, and it didn't happen. So LGA is critically important, but putting a representative, a senator in the legislature that's actually going to support those initiatives when it comes time to vote is equally important.
Matt Norton.
Well, I know it's a little out of my district, but I had a friend up in the Orr area reach out to me about this issue, and I know that it's critically important for small communities, and I think it needs to be addressed on all levels. It needs to be, I think it needs to be fixed more than anything. For some reason, it sounds like there's a lot of hiccups going on with it in general. So I just believe that we need to get some people that are with the most experience in this region and come to a common solution so that the smaller communities aren't hit as hard and can get what they need to run their communities.
Dave?
Thank you. I agree with Matt, experience matters. And as a city councilor and as a mayor of Aurora, I know the importance. Local government aid is based on wealth. And so I'll use Virginia as an example, the city that Matt lives in. It's my largest district that I currently represent, and their budget is a little over $12 million annually. Every year they receive $6,049,547 every single year. Half their budget comes from local government aid, and that is across the Iron Range. It's between 40 and 50% because we don't have the wealth. We don't have that. And what people don't understand is where the money comes from. 68% of all money generated in the state of Minnesota comes from the 7-county metro. And you may say, why is that? Well, there's 3 ways that money is generated: sales tax, property tax, and income tax. Where does everyone live? 7-county metro. They have the wealth. And the Democrats up here, we have fought to bring that money here for our region. Across Evelyn, Gilbert, Virginia, Aurora, Biwabic, Chisholm, all of them. Can you imagine what Virginia's taxes would be if they lost $6 million of their annual budget? That's how important. LGA pays for police, fire, infrastructure for the communities. That is something that cannot go away. I'm proud to say that the 3 of us up here, we supported to restore the LGA that was taken away during the Plenty administration to balance the budget. They also wanted to go after the Irrb. Those are our production tax in lieu of property taxes. So I'm committed to bringing as much money from Minneapolis-St. Paul back to Northeast Minnesota and the people that I represent, because it is essential and critical for the healthy viability of our communities.
Roger?
Thank you. Dave, I echo exactly what you just said. I'm a mayor of a small town. We get 2/3 of our money from LGA. We get a lot. Anything that increases helps us a lot. I would not, this is where I keep campaigning, saying, you know, I'm not going to vote 100% with the Republican Party. If there's anything that I can do to get more Republicans to support the LGA so it's not an issue, I will do it, because I'm a user of it. I understand it. I completely, we do not waste it. It's used. It is the essential, what keeps us up here. The biggest issue about local government aid is that I've seen in the legislature is when they try to compare the Iron Range dollars to Minneapolis dollars, you know, because Minneapolis shouldn't get that much, they're big, and again, fight a different fight to get at Minneapolis. Don't use the LGA. The LGA is important to northern Minnesota. Without it, I really don't know what communities would do. It is that important, and I will stand up for it. I have absolutely no problem standing up for it. And as far as the tax bill or any of the bills, you know, like the legislature's sitting on right now, I mean, it's been said before, and I'll say it again, the governor can call a special session whenever he wants, and it's up to him. No one else can do it. How we got where we are, we can point fingers at each other all day long, but the governor can call a special session. And as a mayor, as a member of RAMS, I've signed letters and sent out saying, call a special session, because everyone's going to benefit from northern Minnesota, from a tax bill and from the bonding bill. So it's important that it does, but the governor's the only one that can call it. Thank you.
Rob?
So we had a terrific tax bill. We had an agreement between the 3 leadership groups. And I'm going to circle back here a little bit. How many people here know realtors? Okay, the pandemic showed us something. Pandemic showed us that northern Minnesota is a terrific place to live. And our realtors have been banner years. That's why your property valuations are up. That's why people are so worried about their property tax increases. But I've been kind of watching how the operating levies are going, and we're seeing 5.6s, 5.7s, 5.2s, not too bad. Mayor, what's Ely's? Did you set yours?
We're at 7, but we're not going, anything below 4 is going to be 4 or below.
So a lot of people don't realize is the local units of government have to set their operating levy early, and then they have a chance to work on their budget and adjust it. And I've seen these 5.6s, 5.7s, 7s, but most of them are going to set their levies lower. So that's going to be helpful for the property tax payers, except for the valuations went up. And we had a fix for that. We had a local government aid formula change. We had county program formula change, county program aid, and maybe the biggest one that I was the chief author of was the payment in lieu of taxes change that the counties get for mostly northern Minnesota, that the counties get to manage tax forfeited properties. All these things would have been fixed in the tax bill, as well as the Social Security relief, if the agreement had been followed. We had agreement in good faith. The Senate GOP walked away from that amongst many other things. And the mayor, Mr. Mayor, you are right. The governor can call a special session, but to call a special session when there isn't another agreement, when you've been burned once, burned twice, I can understand why you didn't. And I've urged the governor to call a special session on another topic for the North Shore miners. Their unemployment insurance is going to run out in November. We need a special session just for that, if nothing else. And talking to leadership last week, they tried to broker a deal to call a special session just for a bonding bill that would have put our construction trades to work, and they couldn't even come to an agreement on that. So that's where we're at. Washington politics has come to Minnesota, but I'm committed to try to fix that. Thank you.
All right, it's 7:54. There's 6 minutes and 6 candidates. You guys can decide the math. What time we want to adjourn. But no, we're going to start with Representative Listlegard. We'll come down this way. In your closing remarks, how can the legislature and the governor of any party, no matter what happens in November, get their work done without special sessions and without delays?
Well, one of the things about politics in the legislature, it's not hitting a red button or a green button. It's much more complicated than that. And you have to have the ability to be pragmatic and the ability to compromise. And I got to be honest with you, we keep hearing about the tax bill. Well, that tax bill went to conference. Democrats and Republicans worked together to get that done. I'm proud to say that as Vice Chair of Taxes, I was on that committee. It was my bill in the House and Senator Bach's bill in the Senate to eliminate the tax on Social Security. The ability to come together and be pragmatic is the only way in a divided government. A cookie-cutter politician would be one that is only effective when their party's in charge. The ability to be effective and navigate through a very complex system, you have to work across the aisle. You have to listen, and you have to be open. Rob is right. It is becoming more toxic on both sides, the far right and the far left. Extremism is what's bad in politics. Extremism is what's bad in politics. Be kind, listen, and work together is the only way we're going to get it done. And I'm going to tell you, I blame a little bit of both on that last whatever session that we had. Because I think that there could have been a deal, but there wasn't. There wasn't a deal. And guess who suffered? The state of Minnesota. I blame the Republicans, but we have to take responsibility, because if something doesn't get over the finish line, there's 2 people. And that's important to understand. That's important to understand as legislators, to be accountable for the actions and the decisions that we make. So, I will tell you that I think that the governor in a 3-way, where you have a legislator, you have a House, you have a Senate, and you have a governor. If you can't work together and you can't listen, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's what's sad in politics. And for DC to come here and all the bickering is exactly what's wrong in politics. And I'm committed to being that pragmatic, that independent and trusted voice to work across the aisle for the people that I represent. That's who I am, that's what I've been, and I've never wavered. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. I appreciate every single one of you guys for being here and listening, and the people that are streaming. Because politics touches our lives. Every single one of us, every day, it touches our lives. And to be engaged is extremely important. Matt is a wonderful, wonderful man. And I'm glad that he's running because he cares. But I believe in my heart that where we're at with losing Senator Bach and Senator Tomassoni, that experience and the ability to navigate through that complex system is exactly what this range needs. And that's why I'm committed to running, and that's what I'm committing to doing. So thank you so much.
Matt Nari. Well, thank you, Dave. I couldn't agree with you more. The divided house is nothing can happen with that, and I would like to thank you for being my opponent, because actually it's been kind of nice. You don't have to mudsling against each other. But the one thing that I bring to the table is that I was in the beverage industry my entire life, and we fought many battles with different brands. And when it came to floor space or it came to tap lines, there was that ultimate compromise. We didn't drag it out in the street, but we came to the table, and we came and brought what was best for our customer and what would benefit that account the most. Obviously, everybody's side, you want to win. I don't think anybody goes into anything to lose. But when you take the ultimate victory for yourself, everybody loses. And the Iron Range is a very special place to me. I want to see the Iron Range win. That is what's most important. And how I look at this is the biggest job interview anybody could ever go through. And no matter, like me, love me, hate me, whatever, everybody has to have a representative, and that is the most important thing. And I think if everybody just took their area for what it is and for their love of their area and went down to St. Paul and just did the best for everybody, I think that could to make a change just in our state, and maybe that could go nationally. So if I'm elected, I would definitely work with everybody, because my motto is I can never have enough friends. So thank you everybody for being here, and I really appreciate you taking a night out of your week. Thank you so much.
I actually think that the question before us is something we haven't talked about, or haven't talked about much, but can the state of Minnesota really expect to get things done when you have a $46 billion budget, billion, and you have 180 days over the course of 2 years to get this done? I think, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, I think we're at a crossroads as to whether we need a part-time legislature or a full-time legislature with the size of our budget and the amount of work that we need to get done. I think that question needs to be answered at some point, probably sooner than later. The other way I think we need to get things done and can get things done is by vetting the bills that are dropped in the hopper. We had over 5,000 bills introduced, or approximately, I think it was right around 5,000 bills introduced this legislative session. You can't do that. You can't have that many bills actually looked at, evaluated, put through a committee process, debated, brought up on a floor. It's impossible. So we need to limit the number of bills and really hone in on maybe focal areas. We need to recognize we're not all going to get it done in one session, but we need to be willing to make progress towards that which we are hopeful for. One of the bills that we had money in it for the Cross Range Expressway. And this is something that is going to be used to drive the economy up here. But I had members vote against it because it was too much or it was too little or it wasn't perfect. It isn't about perfection in government. It's rarely about perfection in government. It's about progress. So we need to be willing to make progress. 5,000 bills is too many. And then I think we need standalone bills. We need to be doing more work where we have individual standalone bills and not waiting to the end and everything tries to get crammed into an omnibus bill where it's impossible truly, even as an educator, to read over $1,000 or 1,000-page bill and fully understand the content of what you're voting on. So we need to do less well, if I had to summarize. Thank you so much for coming out tonight and hearing us, and I really appreciate you being here.
Spencer,
So I'll just kind of take off where Julie kind of left off there with the omnibus bills. You know, that is a huge reason to why we're seeing so much gridlock. You know, for example, some of the ways these omnibus bills work out, we'll get an email that the bill has been released at 10:30 at night and it's 634 pages long and the session is convening at noon the next day. Get ready to vote on it. Holy smokes. Like that doesn't work for people. And then when you look into that bill, 70% of it might be the best thing that ever happened for the range. But the other 30% of the bill could mean horrors for the range. We can't be held at gunpoint like that. And that's why we need to return to passing individual bills on their own. In fact, this legislative session, we passed the least amount of bills in Minnesota state history. That's a colossal disappointment by all of us, Republicans and Democrats. I think when it comes to working together, I try to keep something in my mind. I look at the state as 30% Republican, 30% Democrat, and 40% vote for Jesse Ventura to be governor. And if we all remembered that a little bit more, I think we'd get a lot more done. And I'll use an example of, you know, we're on the House floor late at night sometimes. And it was probably, I think it was 1 in the morning. And, you know, everyone's just kind of dragging on, we're drinking coffee. And a member from the Metro DFL came and sat down next to me. Her and I actually went to college for the same thing, so we were talking and getting to know each other. I ended up having a conversation with her about why I was sponsoring a bill to have a wolf hunt. And we had an honest-to-goodness personal conversation for 20 minutes. And when we left that conversation, she understood why I was doing it and was going to start talking to her constituents about why she would need to support something like this. Those are the things we can do when we set aside our differences. And like Rob over here, I mean, you look at my bills, they're the same way. I honestly put my bills to a test. There should be no such thing as a far right or a far left bill. There's too much that needs to happen. And the final thing that we need to do to stop this gridlock so we get a complete session on time is get rid of what I call the triumvirate. So what that is when the governor and the majority leader and the speaker of the House sign a deal, that doesn't mean that you signed the deal for me and my 45,000 constituents or any of ours at this table. We need to get back to legislators being a part of the circle altogether. Because just because we vote for our elected leaders in our own caucuses doesn't mean they all of a sudden represent our constituents. Everyone at this table represents their constituents. And I have done that with my constituents up to this point. So I want to thank everyone for being here today, those of you watching at home. This is really a critical election, and thank you for getting involved. I think after COVID, everyone, regardless of your party, realize how important it is for us to be involved as a community, to stand together and work together, and we will bring our best days to reality. Thank you.
Rob Eklund.
Well, thanks. So I remember 7 years ago when I was in the minority, my first day of session, Mary Murphy came up to me and she said, "Rob Eklund, remember, you begged for this job." So, and you know what, I still love doing this job. I tell people when I'm on the doors that I'm one of the moderates that's left. And I think what's happened to our political system now is we've got the nuts on the right and the nuts on the left. I didn't mean to look at this picture, but anyway. So, but we have the here on my left anyway. But we have the nuts on the right, nuts on the left that are working overtime to have control of our political process. And I think it's up to us that are moderates to make sure that doesn't happen. Now we talk about omnibus bills. There's been omnibus bills in my 7 years that I've been there, so that's nothing new. And prior to my legislative career, I spent a lot of time working for the union down at the legislature, and the 10 years at least prior to that, there were omnibus bills. So this is nothing new, so we can all complain about it and talk about what the bad and evil things with omnibus bills. But I really think what we need to do is Representative Sandstad maybe hit the nail on the head. We need to look and see if we are allowing ourselves enough time to actually process a $47 billion state budget in the allotted time that we have by the Constitution, and if there should be changes. Heaven forbid, I am not an advocate for a full-time legislature. I'm too old for that. However, at some point in time, for the goodness of the state of Minnesota, we may need to have that conversation because we are not getting our work done in the time allotted, and you as the voters should be disappointed with that. I am committed to trying to fix that. I am committed to try to streamline the process if we can, but we have to figure out a way forward where we can actually get our work done. Thank you for everybody for coming out tonight. I really appreciate the audience. I appreciate the time that you've given us.
And Roger, we'll wrap with you.
I thought you were going to say last but not least. Okay, thank you.
No.
Thank you. So, you know, the no omnibus bills, I got to tell you, we have Iron Range delegation not at the table here that, you know, they got a lot of stuff for the Iron Range in those omnibus bills. That's how we got a lot of stuff passed. I personally, when elected, I will not support them. I will vote, like Julie said, they should be standalone. Everything should stand alone. And it is time. I personally don't want to go to a full-time legislature, but if that's what it's going to have to take so that we don't get this last minute, you got to get this, you got to do it. We have to discipline ourselves down there and make sure that when we start this process, we know that the timeline is, where it is and how it works. And if your bill didn't get in, your bill didn't get in. You know, it's just how it works, like Julie said. It's another time, another day, another year. And as mayor, I was elected by Democrats and Republicans. So I do represent both sides. And I know how to represent both sides. I've been doing it for 8 years. I look forward to going to the Capitol and representing both sides again. I have to pick a party to run on, and the Republican Party aligned with who I am and what I am. And the mining issue is one of the biggest ones. I see northern Minnesota benefiting from a special session if we can get one. But I don't know that we're going to. But without a special session, how am I going to make it happen next year? Again, it's what I do. I work together with both sides. I'm not afraid to bring people up to our community and show them. Bring them to I Falls. I'll bring them to Silver Bay. I'll bring them to Beaver Bay, Grand Marais, wherever they want to go to in our district. That I'll bring them to North Home if they really want to see some cool stuff. You know, it's like we have a big district, and then they can see how we live and what we live, and then they might be able to start supporting what we want because we are different. We don't have. It takes 7 hours to drive across our district. There are people in the metro area, they can walk across their district. We can't. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work together. I'm not as partisan. I'm a moderate like Rob. I've always claimed to be that. But one of the last things I want to leave everyone with, I want to thank you all. I think it's important that the democracy gets aired out like it is. And I really would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for bearing with us. Thanks to RAMS, thanks to the Mesabi Tribune, thanks to Hibbing Public Access. I'll say this, I will do 27 forums, debates, or roundtables this year. This panel of 6 is probably the most civil that I've had, or will probably have in the next 6 weeks. So the range is special. Thanks for having me. Good night.